it's a little bit salty. Hey guys, this is my review for Dunkirk, finally. I had to wait 4 days to see this movie, one because of my job and I wasn't able to see it Thursday night, and then also I was supposed to see it yesterday, but due to a traffic accident I missed my spot, so I had to see it today. This is the newest Christopher Nolan film and it's different. That's the biggest, most accurate word I could use to describe this film in accordance to his previous films. It's different. It doesn't have a main character. It doesn't have that much of characters. More so, this is an event. This is a retelling of an event, and what we see on the film is little snippets of stories of what happened at Dunkirk and the overall scope and absolute lack of survival instinct that came to these guys in this dark hour. And what we get is a story from sort of three perspectives. One is from Tom Hardy and his group in the air in the Spitfires. The second is from a gentleman and his son with a young boy who take their own boat out with all the other civilian boats to Dunkirk. And the third is from a soldier who is at the beach trying desperately to get home and is met with so many obstacles. While I say those are three different stories, none of the characters are really given enough dialogue or really given enough sort of explanation as to who they are. For instance, the first 10 minutes of this film, there's barely a word said. It's all through visual elements, fear, sound. Nolan uses this as a technical aspect for sure. If anything, this is an experimental film, and trying to do a war film that's different from others in terms of how it's put together. Now what I mean by that is, this film is not linearly edited. At first you think it is, and then it actually starts to go back and forth in terms of the story. But what we're seeing is basically how time is an absolute must and every second counts, and how every second of this film transfers to a different person in the story. I'll admit, that was interesting. I didn't think something like that could be done with a war film, but Lee Smith, who has been an editor with Mr. Nolan for years, once again does a really cool, unique job. Thankfully, the pacing isn't as bad as it was in Interstellar. I liked Interstellar, but I have to admit the pacing in the final act of the film was not the greatest. The one thing I will definitely say is it's like watching those reenactments, those reenactment documentaries you see on the History Channel. This is just one, but with an extremely massive budget. As I said, the characters are not more so characters, they're people. These are people who are at this incident. Even Harry Styles barely gets any dialogue in. He's a douche, sort of, in the film, but really he has no dialogue in terms of what you would expect from normal characters. However, when the film came to an end and I was sitting there going, there's a few more things I wish I could have seen, there's a few more pieces of information I would like to have known, but this story does take place from the perspective of the soldiers who were there. We know exactly as much as they know, or as pieces of the military know. And I did like it. It's not one of my favorites though. If I were to ever say out of all the Nolan films I could rewatch again, this is one that I could probably say I couldn't rewatch it. However, it does need to be seen in IMAX. About 70% of the film is like this. And it cuts back to this sometimes. It's really annoying actually because of how much the film is like this. And it just kind of wigs you out a little bit. The audio of this film is done amazingly. When those German bombers come in, you feel the intensity and the fear that is being encapsulated on the film. However, like I said, it's not really a movie, it's a more of an event retelling. I do like how Nolan does use aspects from older war films, and for instance, all the plane fight in the air is done practically. It's done just like how they did in films like Battle of Britain. And I think that it's a decent war film. It's not one of the best ones made. It's literally, I think he just wanted to try a war film about an event that didn't really have conflict, but it was more so an act of desperation, of camaraderie, and of survival. So is it one of my favorite Nolan films? Not really, not so much. Like, you kind of have that Nolan-esque vibe throughout the film, but it doesn't really encapsulate everything that we've seen from Nolan previous. However, we did go from a black hole interdimensional time-traveling space odyssey to a retelling of a World War II event. So I'm interested to see what he does next, as always, and in the end I will give Dunkirk a 5 out of 7. It's a good film, it's well put together, it is different from what you would normally expect. It's like a disaster film, but no bad characters, just more so regular people, and how it's edited is actually quite ingenious, I would say. Anyways guys, that's all for me. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll see you guys next time.